We are now halfway through the LCS summer split. Honestly, this is going by way too quick. I don't like it. The fact that the season ends in literally, a month and a half at most? Yeah, literally a month and a half now, because when this video gets released, it'll be July 1st. This honestly kind of sucks, not gonna lie. Like, we're gonna have 2 months of doing nothing. Oh, man. But at least for now, we've got some really good 100 Thieves games this week. Coming into the week, setting expectations back to where they were as of the end of last week, we should have 2-1'd or 3-0'd this game. Golden Guardians being the likely loss if we were to take it, and we wanted to see signs of development and improvement. That's literally exactly what we saw. A 2-1 finish, a close loss to Golden Guardians that could have been a 3-0, and some really good signs of improvement from several different players. So what I'm going to do this particular episode, I'm going to go through each individual game real quick, go over draft, go over everything else, take some Twitter questions, and then at the very end, I'm going to give report cards to every single player based on the halfway point of the split, where their current grade is at and where they can hopefully end up, because this is your midterm, your progress report halfway. Why not? Starting with game 1, and this is a theme that you're going to see throughout the entire week, we have these drafts that are clearly protect, quid, and double lift. Let the two of them carry. Someday just needs to play a tank top, survive, and provide utility in fights. Closer is being thrown on tank or engaged junglers that he's not expected to carry the game. He's just expected to make sure that double lift and quid can do so. Same thing with Busio. Sometimes he'll get an engaged support like Rakan, and by all means he had some kind of questionable plays on the Nautilus this game, but ultimately that's also the nature of Nautilus. Anytime that he went in, did die, we typically got something from it, all things considered, so it was overall like a net win. This is clearly going to be our strategy going forward, and I don't want to hear from people as time goes on like, oh, we only have one strat. Like, yes, that is the plan. Successful teams can have one general philosophy of, oh wow, protect the two roles that are truly your carry roles and make it work. You just have to have a diversity of champions and picks, which you will see throughout this entire week. So yeah, I'm happy with it. Quid's 2-man Azir shuffle was really nice little flashy play to get him in the spotlight and get him out there and noticed. And double lift has been looking pretty good. Really not much else to say. It was Dig. We got a solid win on him. The Golden Guardians game. Oh man, I feel like it's weird. I don't want to say like 8 out of 10 times we win this game, because 8 out of 10 times, hopefully, we're also not down 4,000 gold due to differences in mid lane and top lane. Quid on Azir versus Yone. I asked Busio about this, and he said this. So yeah, Quid was behind in a matchup where realistically he should be able to probably go even, or at least not lose in the way that he was losing. And someday in top lane, well, you gave Rumble the counter pick. So I guess it's kind of expected, which does bring me to the draft question for this particular game. I'm not the biggest fan of showing our cards early. Like, in theory, the way drafting would work, or so you would think, is unless there's like power picks, when we're on blue side like we were this game, you pick your first pick, then they have to pick 2 champions, and you're able to counter pick from there. You don't want to pick all of your main carries, or in this case like the Renekton. I think the Azir was first pick, and then like Xayah towards the end, but even that was like very obvious by that point because we knew we were going into like Aphelios. Why do you allow like Licorice is gonna get counterpicked top lane, sure, because they have that ability to do so on red side, getting the final pick, but why are you allowing the entire team to counterpick you because everything's so telegraphed? I get we're still a young team, we are still developing, and hopefully we have more flexibility in draft as time goes on, but like, wasn't the biggest fan of how we started this game with the draft, and then in the early game we got beat down pretty bad by Rumble and by Yone. But that said, this comp scales pretty heavily, and we were able to hang on and get to the point where we could win the game, which that, despite this being a loss, at least in my opinion, this was the most positive game of the entire week, because we were able to hold ourselves to a win condition and play around that decently well. We shouldn't have had the deficits that we did, but we were able to put ourselves then in a position to win the game. We just had those 2 very specific plays where Quake got caught out and Closer got caught out, and it just snapped every bit of momentum and allowed Golden Guardians back into the game. If Quid doesn't throw himself at the enemy at bot lane. We secure Dragon, and we can snowball things a lot easier. A lot of people were notably pointing towards Doublelift and Busio, basically 2v1ing Aphelios late game and not being able to do so. I will note, people not seeming to understand, our entire team got chunked down due to an Aphelios ult prior to that, and the rest of the team split below whenever Aphelios realistically probably does win that from the position that he's in. So I don't see why people were flaming Doublelift so hard on that final play, but regardless, we shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. Like, we just gotta not die with objectives up. I know my gold ass might struggle with that, but I would hope that our players will eventually overcome that. And for Quid, there's a few signs within these games where it's like, it feels like he's trying to do everything, which I get. He might be nervous on stage, or he might feel that importance whenever he's on a pick like Azir, which is one of his favorites, to just carry the game. I think he just has to take a step back and realize, okay, I don't have to go for the flashy play. I can just straight up beat you in these fights, because his team fight positioning, when he doesn't like get picked off early, has been good. And shifting to the next game 3 with the win over TSM, he looked really good in some of these fights. There was one position again where he got caught out, was on the flank a little bit too early. I love the fact that he was flanking, but just a little bit too far up. Got caught by the Renekton, got picked. It turned into an objective for the other team. It felt very similar to what we saw the day prior. But then after that, every single moment was good. Overall, our game versus TSM, we got a really good lead bot lane. Varus on Doublelift just looks good. I'll get into that with the report cards in a bit. But just overall, I was very happy with game 3. Some moments and portions of that game where it looked like we might throw it, but overall, we had a lot of composure. We made decisions as a team, and we were able to win this one pretty heavy. But again, all 3 of these games, winnable. Probably could have went 3-0. Not upset that we didn't, but it was an easier week. I'll throw both our schedule next week and our standings up at the same time, because again, the philosophy that I have for the second half of this split is we just have to make sure that we beat the teams that are below us, with the exception of FlyQuest, which, let me check behind me. Yeah, they're up 10k gold at 18 minutes over Immortals. So FlyQuest is now officially back in the middle of the contention race for everybody else. They're finally putting their stuff together. So next week is going to be not easy. FlyQuest, EG, TL. TL is the one team that I'm looking at because they are 1 seed above us, assuming FlyQuest is in their scrim form and does make a run for the later half or the later portion of this split. They're going to be trouble. And honestly, if they're playing in this form right now, it's going to be a tough game for us to beat them. So I'm willing to accept that loss and accept that FlyQuest jumps up over us temporarily and we are still scaling towards playoffs, fine. But we then have to overtake somebody else that's in front of us to make sure that we finish top 6. All I care about is getting top 6, getting us into best of 5s with upper bracket double elimination, and going from there. So this game versus TL, quite frankly, is a must win. EG, look, they're one of the top 2 teams in the league. If we can look better than we did last time whenever Quid got absolutely bodied early, then we'll be fine. So overall, next week, I'm just looking for us to be more competitive against all 3 of these teams than it was the first. Well, okay, FlyQuest and Anomaly. I think the FlyQuest game is going to be really close, if not arguably FlyQuest favored right now. TL, we need to win that game. EG, play them close. So overall, I think 1-2 or 2-1 week, quite frankly, I'm happy with. I'm just trying to keep expectations as reasonable as possible, all things considered. Man, I am really sad because I went through all of the report cards and the tweets, and I didn't realize until afterwards that my video had stopped because I can't see my phone facing me. I'm using the better camera. That's really sad. So let's speed run through these again. Con asked, did we look more decisive as a team? Absolutely, yes. We were going in and making plays together, whether that was in or not. The flanks were good calls to team fight. Yes, our positioning on those might have been a little bit iffy, but overall it seemed like our cohesion as a unit was good, and that's what I like to personally see in a team. I don't want to be caught in this limbo state where like last split Tenacity and Closer can't get on the same page, and it feels like, how do you solve those communication issues? Whereas like now, it feels like we're all together. Whether we in or not is a different story, but at least we're all together, and that is something that you feel like you can ride up the standings if you continue to mesh well and individual players play better in their lanes, etc. Like I really like where we're at in that regard. Quinn said thoughts on closer support and zoning style jungles. Yeah, he's right where he should be right now, for being honest. And I'll get into this in the report cards, but look, he tried Lee Sin. It didn't work. Granted, that was with Nuke Duck, but still, like, closer is getting read like a book right now. And even in these games where he is playing the Maokai, it doesn't look the same as the Maokais whenever you see like Spica carrying on a game with it. So I think he's right where he needs to be at the moment. Our clear carries are Quid and Double Lift, and until we have the mechanical prowess in all of our lanes to play some of these comps that require us to win lane with all of our picks, and then closer can play like Viego or Lee Sin and then just go around to all these lanes that are already winning, then sure, maybe, but we're not at that point as a team yet. So I think it just makes sense. 3 different tweets on Quid looking better. Wholeheartedly agree. Will he be top 3 next split? I will worry about that when the time comes. As of right now, I'm just worried about him developing at the current pace. Given that he's a rookie coming in and didn't play in any other region despite like Korea challengers, like the more accurate comparison for him is Berserker. Now, Berserker came in just guns a-blazing. Quid starting off a little bit slow and building up, which is fine. That can ultimately be good long term. But we just got to give it time. It's only been 2 weeks, so we'll see how it goes. Like, it's not a clear, like, steady, like, straight shot upwards projection for him yet. He's just looking better. I think that's fine. Going into individual report cards for the players. Starting in top lane and going down someday, I think B is fair. Like, someday is someday. Yes, he's lost some lanes whenever he's gotten counterpicked, but he's also won some lanes whenever jungle attention gets up his way. Overall, quite frankly, I'm happy and fine with where he's at. I'd say B. Highs aren't too high, lows aren't too low. Feels pretty steady and reliable, all things considered. I'm happy with that. B's not a bad thing. It's not great, but it's not a bad thing. Jungle with closer. It only makes sense to give him a C for closer, but I think we got to go with C-. Let's be honest. It's not good. And you can't just keep scapegoating this. Oh, you know, he doesn't care as much during the regular season. Playoff closer is an animal. Well, we saw how playoff closer did last time around, and it wasn't that same animal. Sure, he might have a switch that he can flip come playoffs, maybe, but even then, even during those stretches, whenever that would happen, he wasn't getting absolutely bodied by people in games of different skill levels. Yes, there'd be occasional games where he would get beat, but there was also still many where he would pop off, and there was just this inconsistency factor that existed with him. Now he's consistent. He's just consistently like down here. I hope he turns around. I hope he figures out what is holding him back. I would love to see him get a proper win with 100 Thieves, take a title home in a stadium rather than during the COVID era. I don't know. I'm not a pro player. I'm not a jungler. I can't sit here and tell you what he needs to do better. It's just very visually apparent that like he's getting read like a book. Mid lane for Quid still feels way too early on, so I'm going to stick with a C rating, but give him a C+ because of the improvement that we've seen. Yes, he's had some really inty moments at times, and it really feels like when he goes down in lane, because his laning hasn't been great, he feels the need to make up for that later and try these big flashy plays and like truly carry the game in that regard. But I think he can be a little bit less all in like that and still win the game for your team. I've seen enough from him in some of these late game team fights to know that he absolutely can carry some of these games, and his team fighting can be good. He just can't do too much. And also his laning, it's got to keep getting better. I mean, I think he's tied a record today with a CS at 14. But in almost every other game, he's just been consistently going down in lane, which cannot keep happening, especially as he goes up for his rematch against Jojo Pune this week. And the last time that happened, he got absolutely bodied. Bot lane, and I'll lump in Busio with this because I think it's a dynamic duo between bot lane or ADC and support. I would give them an A-. I would have said, had C9 lost today, that they are the best bot lane in the LCS, but I still think Berserker and Sven are clearly up there. I think Unforgiven and Ayla are pretty good. Prince and Vulcan have now started to rebound a little bit. Yeon and Core JJ are also pretty good, but like Double Lift is head and shoulders putting himself above most of the other AD carries in this league, and overall I think they look great. They have been the one lane that we can look to almost every single game to get leads and to be ahead, even on picks that might scale a little bit better. Like, they just seem to be doing good. Does that always convert to wins? No. Are there times where double lift is caught out of position or wrongly flashes or cleanses or just Busio doesn't necessarily play well? Sure, yeah, but literally every bot lane in the LCS has had those moments as well. So I don't take much away from them, even though people want to point at them and be like, oh, this is a glaring weakness. It's like, they're the one spot that consistently has kept us in games. If every single lane played the way Doublelift and Busio have been playing against other teams, we'd be sitting here as the top team in the league. Hands down, bar none. So yeah, I think A- is fine. I don't think any bot lane in the league is perfect right now, but I've seen enough signs for us to say that we have one of the top 3 bot lanes in the league. Doublelift arguably making a case for potential MVP if we can go on a run in the second half here, but Jojo Pian I think still has that title locked down pretty heavily. So that's everything for TFC this week. A little bit more chill, but we are halfway through. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think we're going to end up at the end of the regular season? What is our second half record going to be? I'm hoping for a 5-4 or 6-3. I think that would be really good, but we'll see. If you're not subscribed to this channel, like the majority of you, I think like 84% aren't, be sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bell for 4 to 5 videos a week at minimum, and I will always be here talking, chatting about League of Legends and other gaming shit, so I'll be around. Adios.